Now, in the UK, a serving police officer has been charged with the kidnapping and murder of a 33-year-old woman. Wayne Couzens, who's 48, made his first appearance at a London court.
On a cold evening in March 2021, Sarah Everard, a 33-year-old South London marketing executive, started a walk she had done many times before. She had just left a friend's house in Clapham and intended to return to her apartment using a well-known, presumably safe path. But that evening something seemed strange. Sarah never made her house her home. Days later, the news of her vanished would sweep over the country, revealing systematic flaws and unspeakable betrayal. Searching for Sarah would uncover startling truths that would cause pain and a national reckoning on safety, trust, and the radical reforms society needs. Sarah grew up in Surrey, England, surrounded by a loving and supportive family. She was known for her kind heart, intelligence, and independent spirit. From a young age, Sarah had a natural ability to brighten any room with her positive energy and infectious smile. She was dependable, and people loved being around her. Friends, family, and colleagues all described Sarah as someone who brought joy to others with her warmth and enthusiasm. She had a deep passion for life and was always eager to try new things, whether it was pursuing her career or making new connections with the people she met. After finishing her studies at Durham University, where she earned a degree in geography, Sarah launched a successful career in marketing. She moved to Brixton, a lively area in South London, where she quickly became an admired figure in her local community. Sarah was known not only for her work ethic, but also for her infectious personality and her dedication to her friends and family. She always made time to nurture her relationships, and it was clear that she had a bright future ahead of her. On the evening of March 3rd, 2021, Sarah Everard left her friend's house in Clapham, wearing a bright green rain jacket and running shoes. It was a familiar routine. She was prepared for her walk home, a path she had taken many times before.
What stage would Sarah have realised something was wrong? It's really sad to think that she's that quite scary situation that she's in at that point.
The streets were eerily quiet, the usual buzz of the city muted by the ongoing COVID-19 lockdown. Sarah was no stranger to walking alone at night in her neighbourhood. As she passed through Clapham Common, her phone buzzed with a message from her boyfriend, Josh Loth. They had been in a loving, committed relationship for several years, living together in Brixton, a lively part of South London. Their bond was built on shared dreams and a future filled with plans that Sarah spoke of often with excitement, including their hopes of one day starting a family together. As Sarah continued her walk, she stayed in touch with Josh, texting him throughout the journey. It was a small, comforting habit that kept them connected, even when they were apart. But as the evening wore on and Sarah didn't return home as expected, Josh's concern began to mount. Initially, he thought it was just a delay. But as the hours passed, his concern deepened, and his calls went unanswered. By the following morning, there was still no sign of Sarah, and Josh's anxiety turned to fear. Unable to reach Sarah, Josh contacted her friends and family, desperately trying to understand what could have happened.
Sighting of Sarah, we're obviously also looking into CCTV and exploring that side of things as well. This is of particular concern because it is so out of character and because there has been no contact with Sarah now for 3 days. We really want to be able to find Sarah and reunite her with her family.
They all rallied together, joining the search for Sarah, hoping for any clue that would lead them to her. But as the hours stretched into days, their worst fears began to take shape. The absence of any updates, the unanswered messages, it all pointed to something much more sinister. The police were immediately alerted to Sarah's disappearance and launched an investigation into her whereabouts. They combed the area, reaching out to the public for any information that might help. They collected footage from security cameras, spoke to local witnesses, and began piecing together the timeline of Sarah's last known movements. One of the most important pieces of evidence came from a doorbell camera on Poinders Road, which showed Sarah walking alone at around 9:30 p.m. on March 3rd. The footage was chilling in its starkness. Sarah, appearing calm and unaware, walked along the quiet street just moments before the predator, who would take her life, would approach. This footage became a critical moment in the investigation, offering the first tangible lead in the search for Sarah. But it also marked the beginning of a tragic unraveling of events that no one could have imagined. Despite her calm demeanor, Sarah could never have known that this seemingly ordinary walk would lead to an unimaginable tragedy. And as the investigation progressed, Sarah's family, friends, and the public would soon discover the horrifying truth about the man responsible for her death, one who had been trusted to protect the very people he would ultimately harm. Despite an intense search, the days passed with no new leads. The police continued scouring CCTV footage from surrounding areas, but Sarah's whereabouts remained a mystery. Public concern was mounting, and soon the case began to attract national attention. Social media was flooded with messages of support, frustration, and worry. The hashtag #FindSarah quickly went viral, uniting people across the country in a shared mission to bring Sarah home. Then, on March 9th, 6 days after Sarah's disappearance, the police made a shocking announcement.
A serving police constable has tonight been charged with the kidnap and murder of Sarah Everard. Wayne Couzens, aged 48, has been remanded in custody and will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow morning.
They had arrested a man in connection with her abduction. The suspect was identified as Wayne Couzens, a serving Metropolitan Police officer. The news sent shockwaves through the nation. A police officer, someone who was supposed to protect the public, was now the prime suspect in the case. The betrayal was almost too much to comprehend. The following day, the search for Sarah took a heartbreaking turn. Her body was found in a wooded area near Ashford, Kent, more than 50 miles away from where she was last seen. The remains were identified through dental records, confirming the worst fears of Sarah's family. The grief and disbelief were overwhelming. To make the tragedy even harder to accept, Sarah had been taken by someone in a position of power, someone who had been entrusted with the safety of others. The thought that a police officer could commit such a crime shattered the trust that many had placed in law enforcement.
So we're here to talk to you about Sarah. I'm going to show you a picture. Do you know Sarah?
I don't know.
Okay. Sarah went missing. I'll show you some pictures of.
As the investigation unfolded, the discovery of Sarah's body and the arrest of Wayne Couzens raised even more troubling questions. How could someone in a position of authority, who was supposed to protect the public, be capable of such a heinous act? The case ignited widespread outrage, sparking national conversations about safety, trust, and the abuse of power. The murder of Sarah Everard and the fact that it had been committed by a police officer exposed deep cracks in the system, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about their safety, especially women, and the institutions they relied on for protection. As the investigation continued, it became clear that this was no ordinary crime. It was one that had broken the public's trust in the very institutions meant to keep them safe. In the weeks and months that followed, there was intense scrutiny of the Metropolitan Police, with many asking how they could have missed signs of wrongdoing by one of their own.
Her on the day. Okay. Sarah went missing on Wednesday, and her parents obviously and her family are really worried about her. The inquiry that's been conducted so far has led us to come and speak to you about it and to see what we know about Sarah, okay? So, would you like to, do you know where Sarah is?
No.
Right.
People were left grappling with the horrifying reality that someone they trusted had violated that trust in the most unimaginable way. Let's now take a closer look at how Wayne Couzens committed this chilling crime, despite previous allegations against him, and how his position as a police officer played a central role in the horrific events that unfolded. The crime that took place on the night of March 3rd, 2021, was an unimaginable betrayal, one that would forever change the life of Sarah Everard. No one could have predicted that Wayne Couzens, a police officer sworn to protect the public, would be the one to bring such horror into Sarah's world. At around 9:30 p.m, Sarah was walking home along Poinders Road, a path she had taken countless times before. Little did she know her journey would intersect with a predator hiding behind the badge of authority. Wayne Couzens, driving a rented car, saw Sarah walking alone and decided to strike. He saw an opportunity, one that would alter both their lives in the most horrific way. With London under strict COVID-19 lockdown restrictions, Couzens took advantage of the situation. He falsely claimed that Sarah had violated the lockdown rules and needed to be arrested. Showing her his police badge, he used his position to intimidate Sarah into believing his fabricated story. Feeling a rising sense of fear and confusion, Sarah had no reason to doubt his authority. As a police officer, Couzens had the power to arrest her. He accused her of breaching lockdown protocols, handcuffed her, and forced her into the back of his car. Witnesses nearby believed it was just another routine police stop, unaware that Sarah's nightmare was only beginning. Driving away from Poinders Road, Couzens took Sarah far from London, heading into the isolated areas of Kent. For the next few hours, Sarah was trapped in the car with the man who was supposed to protect her, enduring unspeakable horrors. Alone, terrified, and completely at his mercy, Sarah must have known that her life was slipping away with every mile they drove. Couzens, who had meticulously planned his crime, stopped in a remote area in Kent. There, in the darkness, he sexually assaulted Sarah and then strangled her with his police-issued belt. Her life was violently and coldly taken, ending in a brutal, premeditated act by someone who had sworn an oath to protect people like Sarah. After killing her, Couzens tried to destroy any evidence of his crime. He set fire to Sarah's body, attempting to burn away the evidence, but even after trying to cover his tracks, the truth couldn't be erased. He disposed of her remains in a pond near Ashford, believing that would hide his actions. Yet despite his efforts, the truth would eventually be uncovered. The shocking brutality of the crime, combined with the failure of the system to recognize the warning signs from Couzens' past, brought to light deep flaws in the system. Just days before Sarah's murder, Couzens had been accused of indecent exposure, but no action had been taken against him. This failure allowed him to remain in a position of power, which tragically led to Sarah's death. Wayne Couzens was charged with Sarah's murder on March 12th. During court proceedings, he offered no defense and pleaded guilty to kidnapping, rape, and murder. The evidence against him was undeniable. DNA linked him to Sarah's body. CCTV footage traced his movements, and car rental records and witness statements confirmed his involvement. In September 2021, Couzens was sentenced to a whole life prison term, meaning he would never be released.